Welcome to the Rinkside Rundown podcast, your ultimate destination for all things women's hockey with your host, Chris Sinclair. Hello and welcome back to the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Today, I'm so excited and thrilled to be joined by former musician, stage and film actor, breakfast television host, co-host of Hometown Hockey on Sportsnet, podcast host, and current content contributor to the San Jose Sharks, the one, the only, Tara Slone. Tara, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm looking at my hair though, and it looks terrible, so I have to fix that. But I'm doing really well. It's a sunny day in California, as it tends to be at this time of year. So life's good.
Yeah, well, that made a bunch of us really jealous because I think it's like 6 degrees here. So it snowed yesterday for a moment. So
I saw that. I saw that on the internet. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, like I said, just welcome to the show. I'm so thrilled to have you here. Let's, if you want, let's just dive in. Let's dive into your career. As I had mentioned, you have quite clearly a very eclectic resume, as I almost ran out of breath explaining all of the different things that you've had an opportunity to do. So let's start back at the beginning. Music has long been a passion of yours. As you were both a musician and a stage performer, how do you think your time working at Sam the Record Man influenced your love of music?
Oh my God. I mean, it was an education in itself. I mean, I studied music formally. My dad is a musician. So I grew up with a lot of music around the house and a lot of music playing around the house. My dad writes and, plays guitar and bass and records. So, there was that. And then I gravitated towards classical music. So my formal studies were in classical voice. But yeah, I worked at Sam the Record Man all through high school and beyond. And that was, it was in itself just this incredible, provided this incredible access to all this music that you wouldn't hear necessarily on conventional radio, especially back then, right? Your option, like in my day, we're talking the late 80s, your options are super limited. So a lot of independent music and just a lot of music from overseas. And I became friends with music lovers who were different ages than me. So it expanded my world so much. So I give Sam's a lot of credit.
That's incredible. And what could you talk a little bit more about, obviously Sam the Record Man was that was obviously very clearly an influence on you, but you had that at home as well. Could you talk a little bit more about that sort of relationship with music that you had that developed from home?
Well, so my dad is by trade a lawyer, but when he was a teenager, he was in bands and he wanted nothing more than to just, run away to New York and sign a record deal. And, music has always been in my family home. Yeah. He was, even when he was in law school, he was in a barbershop quartet. They would come and practice at our house. So there was just always music. There were always records playing. There was always, my dad and his guitar. We sing together. And so it's just really infused into my family life.
And I mean, obviously from there, you've spoken a ton about your time. You were in an incredible band, Joy Drop. I wanted to know, how you feel as though your time in or with the band and the success that you had, how that helped to influence the way that you may prepare for being in front of people live, in front of a group of people. We'll get into it in a moment with, hometown hockey and all these sorts of things, how you feel like that time being, the lead singer of a successful band, how that influenced how you kind of prepare both mentally and literally for your time in front of live audiences.
Well, I think like anything, it's about reps, it's you just do something enough times and you develop a level of comfort. So for me, I find live performance much easier, and much less nerve-wracking than just being in front of a camera. Like I just it feels like home. I've done that so many times, that it just, you know, I don't have nerves when it comes to a live audience anymore. So it's just literally having done it so many times. In terms of how it influences my preparation, I mean, I still do vocal warm-ups, leftover like singing, or like a combo of like singing vocal warm-ups and theater school vocal warm-ups that just help kind of ground me and open me up. So it's nice to be able to cull all of these things from all of these different parts of my life that have come together and influence each other.
Do you still get nervous?
I do. I do. I mean, like I said, I feel like standing in front of a live audience, I really don't get, I get butterflies. I wouldn't call them nerves as much, although I'm sure if I was hosting like Times Square New Year's Eve or something, I would. Um, but again, I get like this little kind of jolt of adrenaline, and more on TV than I do. Like I can still get up and sing with a band, but yeah, I still absolutely do. Hometown hockey, I was battling a lot of nerves. That was because for me that was a bit of a strange environment, and I was sitting beside the arguably the best hockey broadcaster in the world with the best memory. And that show moved so incredibly quickly. We had so much to say in such a short period of time that I was constantly terrified that I was going to lose my place. So absolutely. Nerves. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's reassuring for a lot of us who are starting out, where it's, even if you've done you've done the reps and you've done, you've had incredible opportunities, you still feel a little bit of nerves. So that's a little bit reassuring, and I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Well, and some people, I mean, listen, some people have it big time and that'll never change. But also, you become elevated because it matters. You're nervous because it matters and you want to do a good job.
Absolutely, yeah. That passion, that like you want to do a good job. You want to represent the players, the stories, tell them in the way that you want to tell them, and that is truthful and meaningful. And so I understand that. When you let's if we could, let's talk a little bit about what it was like to make that adjustment from living in Montreal,
Hmm.
where you were born, to then moving out to the East Coast, out to Nova Scotia.
Well, so I lived in Montreal 2 different times. So I was born in Montreal, then lived in Toronto, then lived in Kitchener, then lived in Nova Scotia. So that, that was an adjustment that I was a kid, so that it didn't really feel it. Um, but then I went to Montreal to go to university at Concordia, and stayed there for a while. So, but I wouldn't say, yeah, as a kid, I was just tagging along.
And we will be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Durant Barristers. Durant Barristers is a proud supporter of women's sports and is an inaugural sponsor of the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Durant Barristers provides legal services for athletes, coaches, officials, administrators, and sports associations of all sizes, from minor associations to national sports organizations and professional sports environments. We routinely assist with safe sport complaints, investigations, anti-doping, harassment, discrimination, abuse, and governance matters. We also provide representation on general civil litigation matters, including employment and business disputes of all sizes. Durant Barristers founder Aaron Durant also provides mediation and arbitration services to assist in managing disputes in a timely and affordable manner. Durant Barristers has generously offered their best ever discount to fans and supporters of women's hockey. Mention the Rinkside Rundown podcast to, wait for it, receive 15% off all your accounts with Durant Barristers for the duration of your relationship with the firm. To learn more about Durant Barristers, visit www.durantbarristers.com. That's www.durantbarristers.com. Thank you to Durant Barristers for sponsoring this episode.
And now, back to the show.
Do you have any favorite memories of your time different times, but like either time that you were out east? Do you have any favorite memories of your time out there?
In Montreal or in Halifax?
Oh, sorry, in Nova Scotia.
Well, Nova Scotia is my home. You know, for me, those were my formative years. I went to elementary school, junior high, high school there. My dad still lives there. It's where it's where I go when I want to go home. So I just think, it has such a grounding energy to it, especially when you come from a big city where everything's super speedy. It's just so healing to land in Nova Scotia. Everybody is moving at a much slower pace, and it just forces you to slow down too. So let alone, it's obviously a really physically beautiful place, and people are notoriously kind and generous and friendly. But yeah, it's home. I love it.
Do you think that sort of slow down and enjoy the moments that you've learned from your time in Nova Scotia have helped you throughout your career, especially now out in California, which I've never been, but I can assume it's a little bit busier than Nova Scotia?
It is, but I'm not right in the heart of the city here. But yeah, I would say that the vibe here is slower than like a Toronto, for instance. People take a little longer to get back to you via email, things like that. I think I always hearken back to it. I know part of it is having grown up in Nova Scotia. Part of it is being a lifelong meditator. So, having the reference point of slowing down, of taking a beat, I think has just been part of my life. But I'm not necessarily great at it. I really look back at my music career, and I don't think I appreciated any of it as it was happening. And I don't want to do that anymore. So I am cognizant of just stopping to smell the roses, for lack of a better metaphor, just appreciating the journey as opposed to just looking towards a goal.
Well, let's talk about your journey as you continue into your broadcasting career. You made the switch and joined Breakfast Television out of Calgary. What made you decide to make that career change and get into broadcasting?
It happened kind of gradually. With my band Joy Drop, we put out 2 albums. The record company was bought out. We lost our record deal. Sort of a classic tale. We stayed together for a little while, but really just didn't have a strong enough bond unit to keep it going. So we broke up. I started to do some solo stuff, started working on a solo album, did a reality show called Rockstar in Excess, which, for those who wonder, no, it wasn't really fun. But what it did was, first of all, I made a lot of friends. Musicians are very collaborative people. So we all really loved each other and still do. But what Rockstar in Excess actually did for me was kind of bridge this music and television divide. And so when I got kicked off the show, I was being asked by a lot of Canadian entertainment outlets to weigh in and do this and do that. And so after, a couple of years, I'd done enough and I had enough material to put a reel together. I was thinking about what the next step for me would be, and entertainment reporting seemed to be just that the door started to kind of, inch open. So that's the direction I chose. And I was lucky enough to get a job at a small station in Toronto where I really was able to learn as I was working, which I don't think people get those types of opportunities anymore. There aren't those kinds of stations anymore. But so yeah, right place, right time. And, sometimes it's also just about looking ahead and, trusting the universe a little bit.
Ooh, that's good advice. That's good advice. How have you found the transition from music into broadcasting?
It was initially very difficult. I think on a few different levels. First of all, I really liked being Tara the singer, Tara the rock star, and Tara from Joy Drop. And letting that go was hard. Just hard for my ego. It's, I think anybody who transitions, like a professional athlete, it just, you wear something for so long. It's just feels strange to morph into something else. So that was challenging. Learning something new is challenging, but very rewarding. But when we talked about nerves, I actually battled mega, mega nerves when I first started doing television. I started getting panic attacks on the air, which is, you know, eh, anybody who has those kinds of mental health struggles, who's struggled with a panic disorder, knows there's no rhyme or reason. This was a small station. If 100 people were watching, it would shock me. But it just wasn't about that. It was just about the foreignness of this medium. So that was the hardest thing for me, is I all of a sudden, after not battling nerves on stage, really, I battled nerves in front of the camera. So I had to work through that.
And now, a word from our sponsor.
This episode is sponsored by sports nutritionist Melissa Buffunos of MB Performance Nutrition. As a former competitive hockey player turned nutritionist, Melissa's mission is to help the next generation of hockey players optimize their health and diets so they can perform their best on and off the ice. Ready to dominate on the ice? Melissa's new course, The Hockey Nutrition Blueprint, is opening soon. If you're serious about learning how nutrition can impact performance and building actionable nutrition strategies based on your unique needs as an elite hockey player, get on the waitlist today. Learn more and sign up at melissabuffunos.com/course. That's melissabuffunos.com/course. Thank you to Melissa Buffunos for sponsoring this episode.
And now, back to the show.
I guess, obviously you had been in Joy Drop. You had also, competed in Rockstar as well. Like, what was it? Did you feel as though was different for you? You were in front of a camera. You've been in front of a camera. I mean, maybe not quite so specifically and focused solely on you all the time. But what do you think was the difference for you that led to those panic attacks?
Well, when it happened the first time, it was just, I was just doing a single shot, looking down the camera. It was called a double ender. We call it a double ender in the business. So talking to somebody in a different studio. I think maybe just the starkness of it. When I'm on stage, I'm with a band, I feel supported, and there's ambient noise, there's music, there's crowd, there's sort of the whole environment supports you. This was a quiet studio. You could hear a pin drop. And it wasn't singing. I wasn't singing. I was talking, and I had to make sense. So I think all of those factors just, and then once you have, the brain is such an interesting thing. Like, once you have one panic attack related to something, your brain decides that every time you do that thing, it needs to panic. So it was really like, it was touch and go there for a while. There were a few months where, it could have been the end right at the beginning of my TV career.
I just sort of one last question in regards to this is just, what was it that helped you, or what did you do to overcome that? To overcome that, you're a singular person staring into a camera, What was it that helped you to overcome it? And like you said, your career, you could have stopped your career, ended your career then, but you managed to get to push through that. What was it that helped you to push through that?
I went to a cognitive behavioral therapist and I did a lot of work right away because it was clear that this was like not going to end on its own and I didn't have the tools. And so cognitive behavioral therapy is exactly the kind of process that helps you, relate to the panic and just realize that you're not going to pass out. You're not going to no matter when those feelings that you can get through those feelings of panic when they come up, you're not going to keel over. Um, so I spent 3 months, going pretty intensively and doing work with a really great doctor and it helped. And I mean, I still call upon those skills, those tools. It's very helpful.
Appreciate that vulnerability and knowing that there is a solution to how you kind of reframe your perspective on a specific situation, whether you're on stage performing or whether you're at the studio staring into a camera lens,
Mhm.
right? Like there's always a unique way for you to be able to to shift that perspective. And I kind of wanted to know, how do you think, or how do you feel as though your time in theater, you were in such shows as the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is everyone knows,
Mhm.
and your time in music help you to prepare for being on live TV. We've talked about the sort of mental hurdles, but how does that history, how do you leverage or pull from those experiences in order to be able to support you on live TV?
I mean, I can't say specifically, but I think when my first of all, my singing training, my theater training, it's all about how you present yourself, your posture, the exchange you have with an audience, the way you speak, the way your voice works, the way you enunciate. So it's all very connected and those tools are I mean, they're invaluable, I think, for anyone. So, yeah, for me, it was just kind of building up all of these skill sets, that became very relevant once I got into broadcasting.
Well, as a theater performer myself, I feel you on a lot of those things, and how you carry yourself, how you just literally carry yourself can absolutely change how you come across and how you're able to connect with someone and how you're able to tell a story and all those sorts of things. So I definitely feel you on that. I read about that about your career, and I was just like immediately brought back to high school theater and the many competitions and all those sorts of things that I was a part of. So it definitely, I never got to perform in something like Rocky Horror Picture Show, or I saw it obviously performed the movie as well, but never got to perform in it myself. Nor did I have the opportunity to actually perform on screen. So, could we just talk a little bit about your career on screen, which I think is something that many people may have overlooked only because of your incredible broadcasting career.
Right.
But what just like kind of just speak about what that experience was like, just actually having the opportunity to be on TV.
I mean, it's fun, I think it's a very different part of the craft than theater acting. Um, and that old adage, hurry up and wait. Like it takes like so long to shoot something so small, but it's super exhilarating. I mean, sets are busy and there's people around you and they're dressing you and they're making you up. And um, it's it's great work if you can get it, as they say. So I really enjoyed all the work I did. I'm going to be honest. I think of all the things that I've done in my life, I think that I am the least good at acting. So I enjoyed it, but I did get some really good opportunities out of theater school. Um, But it's a really hard business. If you're a musician, I mean, music's a hard business too, but at least you can play with your band, play with your friends, write a song. Being an actor, waiting for calls, auditioning, getting turned down all the time, that I didn't enjoy. And luckily, I was, doing that whole thing when Joy Drop arose in my life and took over. So I don't think I had the chops, frankly, and um, I don't know, stamina, like to keep putting myself out there. It's really hard.
Well, consider when we think about putting yourself out there, as we progress through this incredible career that you've had, we now, we come up to being able to have the opportunity to co-host Hometown Hockey with Ron McLean. As
Mhm.
you said, the legendary Ron McLean, who has a memory that I hope that at that age I'm able to remember anything. It was
He has a photographic memory.
Yeah,
It's
it's wild.
ridiculous.
It's so amazing. A story for every occasion. What was it like for you to be able to connect with so many? Sorry, you did that for 8 seasons. What
Mhm.
was it like for you to be able to connect with so many different communities around Canada? What did that mean to you?
It was one of the greatest privileges of my life. I cannot overstate. I mean, um, it was an honor. It was an honor. People were so generous with, everybody wanted to show us everything. So generous with their time, so generous with their resources. And, I think for communities across the country to trust Ron and me to be the conduits for these stories, we just loved going to these places and just soaking in as much as we could. And that's why I say when we had so much to get through on a show, it's like because we had seen and done and met a million people, and we wanted to get every name and everything on the show. And it was really special. I mean, obviously you travel that much and it's a grind, you get to January and you're going to Grand Prairie and you're just like, "Oh my god, I'm dying." It was a lot of travel, 25 weekends a year on the road. But I mean, worth every mile, every sleepless night, whatever. I think a brilliant concept, and I think that I think there's it's missing from the landscape. I think it was really unique and really special.
Yeah, highlighting a lot of those different communities and the impact that hockey has had on those communities I agree with you. It's definitely something that unfortunately, at least right now, hopefully it'll change, but at least right now is absolutely missing. But I want to know as well, like, what were some of your favorite memories? What did you take away from that experience? Because I can only imagine, as someone who's lucky or fortunate enough now to be myself working in alongside women's hockey, and how that's made me feel so fulfilled and
Mhm.
rewarded. It must have, you did this for 8 seasons. What were some of the things that were most rewarding and memorable for you?
It's just so much. I mean, first of all, in every community I got to do, we called it my hometown must. So it was like the thing you need to do, that community is known for. So in Thunder Bay, I went with a bunch of Finnish expats and did this whole sauna experience and then jumped in Lake Superior, which was perhaps the stupidest thing I've ever done. So I kind of did the thing you need to do. And that was just fun and cool. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, we really, both Ron and I would say the same thing. It was really an education about, the Indigenous experience in Canada. We were welcomed by a lot of First Nations communities, um, experienced, so much learning and unlearning and joy and sorrow. And, really we're sort of taken through these journeys and felt very, very enlightened by that. And it just got to this point where, again, it was about trust. And I do think it has a lot to do with Ron. He's been around for so long, and he's nice. People know that he has this kindness to him, and people want to talk to him. So we became people shared stories with us that were incredibly hard, stories of loss and sickness and tragedy. And so, I'm not going to say that's like my favorite part, because that's a weird way to put it, but I'm very grateful to have had and to have earned that trust. So, I mean, there's just so much, not to mention just the whole crew. I mean, we had a really, really special group of producers and associate producers, and our executive producer, Allie Redmond, really trusted all of us. It was a very collaborative experience. And then we had a whole crew of people on the road who made the festival part happen. So everybody, I think, was equally invested in giving festival goers the best experience possible, giving viewers the best experience possible. And I think that's what the magic was, that everybody really believed in this thing.
Yeah, and based off of what you've shared, there are a lot of, obviously, as you've said, so many different things, so many different experiences that you had gone through. But one of the things that was most profound to you, it sounds as though, was just the overall were just the overall connections. And I think
Mhm.
when we continue through your career, one of the opportunities that you've had now, because as I'd mentioned off the top, you have a podcast which is called The Undercurrent with Tara Slone. Make sure you subscribe and like it and review it. When we talk about those connections, obviously you've had some incredible guests on your podcast. How did that podcast come to be? And we talk about experiences. We're going to talk about experiences one more time. And what is it just like the overall experience to be able to continue those connections with this incredible podcast of yours?
Well, the podcast was born out of my move to California. I wanted to come here. I was in a relationship, and hometown hockey came to an end. So it seemed like I was at this crossroads. Wanted to come here, contacted the Sharks, told them I was thinking of coming, contacted NBC Sports. So it's not like they had a job that I applied for. They created this space for me, both NBC and the Sharks. So when I started talking with them, they wanted what it was I did. And they knew that, highlighting the game changers, the people who are doing the work in hockey and trying to make hockey safer, more inclusive. They knew that was part of what I could bring. So it was very much born of, hey, a podcast is part of what we want, and you can kind of do what you want. And that was it.
Fair. And
Carte
let's talk a little bit about your time as host. You had the opportunity to host the docuseries Top of Her Game. And
Mhm.
what did we talk about inclusion, we talk about just bringing everyone in and making this a safe space for everyone. What were some of your biggest takeaways during some of those interviews? And I guess more broadly, like just having the opportunity to, or the opportunity, being lucky enough to be able to have, some of those interviews with those, so many incredible people.
I mean, well, one of the greatest takeaways was sort of what you and I spoke about a little bit earlier, which was really appreciating the journey. Especially people who had done a lot and maybe were at a later stage of their life and career. I finished every interview by asking my guests what advice they would give to a 12-year-old themselves. And that was it. It was like, appreciate the journey, appreciate the moments. So that's one thing. I mean, I always say that it took COVID to get a show about women's sports off the ground. That was the climate then. I think we're at a tipping point now, and it's such a relief, because there are so many of us who've been pushing for so long and just waving the flag, going like this. Listen, women's sports are good, not just good, excellent, and also we all thought, and now it's starting, the proof is in the pudding. This is like a financially viable, like this shit could like blow up. So, but back in 2020, we just, there were no live sports. So luckily Sportsnet had some holes to fill. And so we pitched this, they went for it. And, what I learned is there's no shortage of stories. They just need to be told and highlighted. It's just about being intentional. So it's certainly fueled a fire in me to just push and push and push and highlight and amplify and just don't stop. It's so, I remember scrolling through, Sportsnet's website and TSN's website during COVID. So no live sports were on, but still, there were no stories about women's sports on the main page. So it's about being intentional, reminding people like, hi, this is out there. This story is worth hearing.
I love that answer. And I also want to take a moment to maybe ask you this, maybe a difficult question, but like, you are a role model for so many women, whether you're in broadcasting or whatever, but you are a role model for so many young women. Your perseverance, your dedication, your, all of the incredible things that you've been able to contribute to this space. And especially, like you said, your goal is to amplify the voices. And that's so incredible. What does it mean for you to be a role model for so many people?
It's an honor. I mean, I certainly don't take it lightly. I think it's incumbent upon, any woman in a position of leadership to kind of pay it forward, to in that way pay homage to the women who have paved the way before us, and just, make things easier for the next generation. So, it's an honor to, when people say that to me, it's, makes my heart feel really warm. And I always make the time to talk to, young women and men. But I think it's just, that's, what else is there? What else is there?
No, good, great answer. Absolutely. Yeah. I agree with you. And when we think about, especially women starting to fill the space more nationally, obviously now, and we're going to get into it in a moment, but the PWHL, it's great to start to see a lot more women in the, whether it's in studio, as you've had an opportunity to be there, whether it's rinkside reporting, whatever it may be. You now, as we've mentioned a few times, are a part of, or you work alongside the San Jose Sharks. I want to know, what's that experience been like to be a part of that organization, and just kind of how it feels to be there, how it feels to be that content creator, and your experience thus far.
Well, admittedly, there's no sugarcoating it. I came into the organization at a really tough time. This is a team in the throes of a down to the studs rebuild. So we just finished 32nd of 32. They unfortunately just let our head coach go, which was really sad for a lot of us who got to know and love and appreciate him. So it's a grind, it's a grind getting through a season like this. And, kudos to the players for managing to stay relatively upbeat. But I like the organization. Part of why I was drawn to it, the president, Jonathan Becker, I think he and I are very aligned in our values. And he really wants to make hockey more accessible. He really wants to make hockey more inclusive. So I think that the San Jose Sharks, demonstrate that through, they put their money where their mouth is. So I've really enjoyed my time here. I think the broadcast crew is world class. So I love doing the broadcasts. And again, the content that we're doing, there's a video series called Making Waves where we highlight people in the Bay Area who are doing great work in hockey. So very much aligned with all of my values. So it feels really good to be here and to be appreciated for what I can bring and exactly who I am.
And we will be right back.
I would like to take a moment to talk about our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet the action on the ice with DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the app now and use code THPN. New customers can get $150 instantly in bonus bets for betting just $5 on hockey. That's code THPN only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL. The crown is yours. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. Please play responsibly. See dkng.com/hockey for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gambling resources. NHL and the NHL Shield are registered trademarks of the National Hockey League. Copyright NHL 2023, all rights reserved.
And now, back to the show.
Maybe just talk a little bit more about that series that you're doing in the Bay. Maybe just kind of let's take an opportunity to kind of highlight the incredible work you're doing there.
Sure. Yeah. So Making Waves is very much focused on people in the Bay Area doing good things in hockey. Where I have an interview tomorrow. We're going to be highlighting the Northern California Women's Hockey League, which is a very inclusive league in terms of all ages, all abilities. They have a really fantastic gender policy. So anyone who has ever at any time identified as a woman can play. And that was very much inspired by Harrison Brown, who played for the PHF, NWHL. So, just making sure that these stories are told. We did a profile of an underwater hockey team, which was a sport I had never heard of at all. And it's really cool. We highlighted the great work happening at Oakland Ice. So yeah, it's like really stories that are very much local. They're not as easy to find here as they would be in Canada, but they exist. So it's incumbent upon us to tell them.
And I love that you're doing that. And when we talk about that, we've talked about it or spoken about it a few times now, just that inclusion and especially around women's sports. We now, as I had mentioned just a moment ago, we now have the PWHL. So I just love to kind of get your initial impressions as the season is about to wind down. Your initial impressions on the PWHL, what it means, you think, for the growth of the sport, and especially for someone like yourself who isn't in a specific PWHL market, what the kind of reception has been there as well.
I mean, I think there's probably not as much of an awareness down here, but certainly, there are girls programs here that are very high level, very elite. The Junior Sharks program is amazing. So those young women, those girls, they know that the PWHL is out there, and I make sure that I talk about it on at every opportunity. So I've interviewed Jana Hefford on my podcast. This week's guest is Shireen Ahmed, who is a CBC contributor who does a lot of work in that space as well. And on my NBC games I do tell some PWHL stories. So I make sure that I do my part down here. I mean, it's everything, and I think anybody who's been following along, um, the whole journey of, the CWHL, the NWHL, the PHF, the kind of heartbreak along the way that has just constantly accompanied the attempts to have a viable women's league, the PWHPA stepping back and holding off until, something real could materialize, and knowing what kind of resolve that took on the part of these incredible players. And then to see this born and to see it flourish is just, it brings tears to my eyes. And I haven't seen a game yet because I haven't been anywhere where those teams are playing, but I was at the All-Star festivities. So I did see the 3-on-3 there, and it was just so heartening. And one of my favorite things now is the merch is in such high demand that you can't get it. The battle on Bay Street and the game that just happened in Montreal, like the attendance records being broken. But what I also really love is that people are just talking about the hockey. I think it's just finally maybe shut up. Not all, but most of the naysayers. Women's hockey is good, is physical, is entertaining, and it's highly skilled, and people are watching it. So, case closed.
I couldn't have summed it up better. So yeah, that was fantastic. As we kind of wrap up, it's interesting that you had mentioned earlier in the episode that one of the things that you like to do on your podcast is to kind of wrap up with some like what advice would you give 12-year-old you? I want to know. Obviously, the media landscape continues to evolve, continues to change. I want to know, what advice might you have for someone who is interested in getting into this space, but may be feeling discouraged based off of there are so many superlatives you could use, but like the chaos or the various changes that are happening in the media landscape right now?
Yeah, I think my first words of caution, not necessarily caution, but I would just say, listen, you better love this, right? I think it's not an easy business. But if you really love it, then you should do it. If you're kind of just want to like show your face on whatever, go be an influencer. Like, if you are curious about people and journeys, then yes, do that. It's certainly, I wish I knew how to do more things. And I think, unfortunately, as, budgets shrink and the landscape changes, more is being asked. I see what media jobs are out there, and it's not just, you can't just be a camera person, for instance. You have to know how to edit, and probably you have to know how to be a videographer to interview. So I would say just learn as many things as possible. They're going to come in handy anyway, So even if you want to be an on-air talent, please learn everything. You'll probably need it, use it. It will be beneficial. It's always really important to know how things are constructed, how to produce something. Like, if you do a story, like how would you paper edit that? Like how do you envision that happening? So as much as, if you may not want to pick up a camera and shoot, the more you know how to do, the better it will serve you. I didn't go to school for broadcasting, but I certainly recommend that path, because I think there are a lot of great programs that are not, that are college programs or diploma programs, or there's all kinds. Usually the teachers are people who are still in the industry, and those teachers and those programs can help you get connected just by being there. And then I would just say also, like, because there's so much opportunity for content creation, don't just wait to go to school. Like, mess around, do it, do the thing, do a podcast, do a video blog, like do whatever it is. I mean, my daughter just put together, we did this little cute skating video for Bauer, and my daughter edited it, and she's great at it. Why? Because she does it on TikTok all the time. So just do the thing. Like, it's, I think, this digital world has allowed so much access. So there's no reason to just wait until you go to school to start learning something.
Well, there you have it. That's profound advice. Absolutely agree with you. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it.
Yeah.
Tara, I can't express how much I thank you for your time today. This has been a great conversation. I think you've provided a ton of incredible advice, and it's just been fun to just catch up and just to chat. So I can't thank you enough for coming on today.
This was really great. I super enjoyed the conversation. So thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Anytime. And there you have it, folks. For Tara Slone, I'm Chris Sinclair, and this has been the Rinkside Rundown podcast. Cheers.